Everything was going according to plan. But that's exactly what set me up. Listen carefully. The denouement will be unexpected. The hum of the old ceiling fan barely stirred the heavy Oklahoma air as I dropped my duffel bag onto the hardwood floor with a grunt that rattled up my spine. My boots, stained with the dust of a year away, left dull marks as I shuffled across the living room. Home. It was supposed to feel like home. Instead, the walls felt like they were closing in, suffocating me with an invisible pressure I couldn't name yet. I kicked the door closed behind me, my hand lingering on the knob for a second longer than necessary, as if the outside world might still offer me an escape. I didn't know it yet, but the real war wasn't over there. It was waiting for me here, inside these walls. I sank into the battered leather couch, my legs protesting every movement, and fished out my old laptop from the side table where Lisa always left the mail stacked and half forgotten. The screen flickered awake with a mechanical sigh, slower than I remembered, and before I could even navigate to check my emails, a single tab blinked open like a wound. Lisa's private blog. My pulse stuttered. I didn't recognize the login, but the screen wasn't locked. One careless mistake, one open door she didn't even think to close. I clicked. Words poured out across the screen, venomous and gleeful. Counting down the days till I can dump the war-obsessed loser and finally live the life I deserve. Nathan makes me feel alive. This house, it'll fund our dream escape. He doesn't even see it coming. Each word carved itself into my ribs, hammering deeper with every line. She called me pathetic, a relic, a burden she couldn't wait to shed. Her words curled through my mind like smoke, bitter and blinding. Before I knew what I was doing, I was on my feet. The wicker chair by the window, her favorite spot for phone calls and morning coffee, became my target. I lifted it, rage clawing up my throat, and smashed it down against the floor. The crash exploded through the house, wood and straw bursting apart like fireworks. My breath came ragged, fast, the blood pounding behind my eyes so hard I thought my skull might split. I stood over the wreckage, heart hammering, fists aching for something more. But instead of screaming, instead of tearing the whole damn place apart, I forced myself to move. Retreating to the garage, I yanked open every drawer, every box, desperate for something solid to hold on to. Behind a battered old cooler, buried under spare Christmas lights and a cracked garden gnome, I found it. A thumb drive, neon pink, marked private. The name alone made my stomach turn. I jammed it into my laptop, fingers trembling, and opened the files. Emails, plans, confirmations. Lisa had already accepted a secret offer on our house, behind my back without a whisper. Photos of Nathan, smiling with his arm around my wife, grinning inside the home I'd killed myself to provide. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a drunken moment of weakness. It was deliberate, planned. I copied everything. I didn't think about it. Didn't weigh the consequences. Every click was a stitch, sewing together the armor I was going to need. My rage wasn't wild anymore. It was precise, cold, focused. My hands stopped shaking by the time the files finished transferring. That was the moment I stopped being her husband in any way that mattered. That was the moment I became something else entirely. Something she would never see coming. The door to the kitchen creaked open behind me, but I didn't turn. I stayed crouched in front of the laptop, the screen painting my face ghost white in the dark. Lisa's soft humming drifted through the air, a song she used to hum when she baked cookies for Ava. Now it made my skin crawl. My chest tightened, not from fear, but from the raw restraint it took not to confront her right then, right there. Instead, I closed the laptop gently, like a surgeon folding a wound shut, and stood up. Tomorrow would be soon enough. Tomorrow, I'd start tearing her perfect little world apart, piece by piece from the inside. Tonight, I would sleep in the guest room, the door locked, my hand on the USB drive under my pillow like a soldier clutching a grenade. Tomorrow, she'd still smile at me across the breakfast table, thinking she was safe, thinking she was smarter, faster, better. Tomorrow, the real war would begin. 3 weeks slipped by like oil through my fingers, each day darker than the last, each minute stretched thin over the razor wire of patience. I moved like a ghost through the house, careful to leave no footprints on the battlefield I was building. Lisa floated around like nothing had changed, laughing too loud on her phone, tapping out texts with her nails clicking against the screen, the sound grating at my nerves until it became the rhythm of my nightmares. She thought I was broken. She thought I had swallowed the betrayal like a bitter pill and gone back to sleep. She thought wrong. It was a Tuesday when the first real crack appeared. Ava's piano teacher, Miss Sutton, a sweet woman with a braid of silver hair and a voice like velvet, sent me a text. Concerned about Ava, she's missed too many lessons. We need to talk. The words hit me like a shovel to the chest. Ava loved her music. She lived for the soft flutter of keys under her fingers, the way melodies poured from her like water from a broken dam. It was the only thing she had clung to during the months I was deployed, the only anchor she had left when her world shifted and buckled under the weight of Lisa's fake smiles. I checked the bank app. The monthly piano payments, always scheduled on autopay, had been quietly canceled 2 months ago. In their place were charges from high-end boutiques, jewelry stores, and once, an obscene tab at some sleazy resort an hour outside of Tulsa. My stomach curdled. Lisa wasn't just stealing from me anymore. She was stealing from Ava. She was trading our daughter's dreams for perfume and gold. My hands shook with fury, but my mind stayed sharp. I sent a fake invoice from the music school to Lisa's email, a phony but official-looking document claiming a payment dispute. I watched from the shadows as she opened it, her face twisting into a mask of irritation. A few hours later, while she was on her third glass of wine, she left Nathan a voicemail, her voice sharp and venomous. You said it was safe. Now there's a effing bill. What if he finds out? I caught it all, every word, because weeks ago I had rigged our smart thermostat to capture audio under energy-saving diagnostics. She never thought to change the password. She never thought I was capable of watching her from the walls she decorated so carefully to impress everyone else. That night, after Ava had gone to bed with her stuffed owl tucked under her chin, I pulled Lisa's favorite Louis Vuitton purse from the closet, the one she bought for work meetings and never once carried to a meeting. I listed it online under a fake seller name. It sold in minutes, enough to buy Ava something better than Lisa ever would. I told Ava we were going on a little trip the next afternoon. She grinned so wide her missing front teeth made her look like a jack-o'-lantern. I took her to the music store downtown, a place that smelled like old wood and ambition, and bought her a digital keyboard with weighted keys, the kind real musicians used. She ran her fingers over the smooth surface like it was sacred, her face glowing with a light that hadn't shone since before I left for deployment. When we got home, Lisa was in the living room, slumped over her phone, scrolling through shallow lives she envied more than she lived. She barely glanced up when Ava dashed past her, arms wrapped around the keyboard box like it was a treasure chest. I leaned against the door frame, arms crossed, and watched Lisa's mouth tighten. She didn't know about the missing purse yet. She didn't know about the rumors I had started either. A quiet tip to Ava's teacher about Lisa's financial issues that trickled into whispers among the PTA like a leak no one could find the source of. Lisa's perfect suburban goddess persona was starting to rot from the inside, the same way a tree can look tall and strong until the termites finally chew through the heartwood. Later that evening, I found Ava plinking out a clumsy but hopeful version of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star on her new keyboard. I sat beside her, letting the music fill the spaces inside me that rage and betrayal couldn't touch. Her little hands faltered once, and she looked up at me, brow furrowed in confusion. Mommy said I didn't need to practice anymore, she said softly, a frown tugging at her mouth. She said piano was just a phase. My chest tightened until it hurt to breathe. I tucked a stray curl behind her ear and smiled as best I could. You're not a phase, I said, voice rough. You're a song that never stops. She beamed, the kind of smile that made the shadows in the room retreat for a few precious seconds. I stayed there, sitting cross-legged on the floor beside her, while the house around us cracked and splintered, invisible to her, but painfully clear to me. In the dead hours of that night, long after Lisa stumbled into bed reeking of wine and cheap perfume, I sat at the kitchen table and stared at the thumb drive again. The files I'd saved weren't just evidence anymore. They were weapons. Proof. kindling for a fire she wouldn't see until it was already devouring everything she built on my back. And it was only just beginning. If there was one thing Lisa prized even more than her mirrored selfies or overpriced jewelry, it was her reputation. Out here, in the cookie-cutter sprawl of Tulsa's suburbs, appearances were the real currency. Lisa wore hers like a bulletproof vest, gleaming, untouchable, fake. She built her world on polite smiles, fake laughs, and manicured gossip, pretending every inch of her life was perfect. It was time to show her how quickly rot spreads when you poke the right spot. The weekly neighborhood potluck was her stage. She hosted it like some queen of suburbia, all curated charcuterie boards and wine poured just carelessly enough to seem charming. Invitations went out through a shared Google Doc, one she proudly controlled down to the emoji next to every family's name. I found the link easily. She left it open on her laptop when she went upstairs to shower. Though Nathan's name lighting up her phone while the water ran made it pretty damn clear she wasn't washing anything but her conscience. I waited until she was deep in her routine, candles lit, mirror fogged, before slipping into the office. One click into the potluck file and the sabotage began. I added a new RSVP, careful to match the casual tone of the others. Nathan and Lisa, excited to share our new plans for the cozy open house. A second RSVP under a fake neighbor's name mentioned, "Can't wait to hear the big announcement." Subtle enough to pass at a glance, explosive enough once read aloud. I closed the laptop with a click that sounded louder than a gunshot in the silent room. My blood thudded in my ears, but not from fear. This wasn't fear anymore. It was the slow, hot satisfaction of watching a noose tighten, one careful knot at a time. Saturday came brutal and bright, the Oklahoma sun beating down like judgment. Lisa flitted around the house, teeth flashing in a brittle smile, snapping orders at Ava and me as if her life depended on the perfect cheese plate. I played along, slow and compliant, polishing silverware while my mind danced ahead to the show that was about to start. Neighbors arrived just after 6, bearing salads and casseroles and the fake pleasantries Lisa ate up like candy. The air buzzed with the typical small talk. Promotions, school recitals, which lawn service was least likely to wreck your sprinklers. I hovered at the edge, setting down folding chairs, watching the pot begin to boil. Then it happened. Miss Patterson, a retired nurse who saw through everyone's bullshit but never said a word, leaned over the snack table and casually asked, "So Lisa, what's this cozy open house thing? New beginnings?" The words sliced through the room like a scalpel. Lisa froze mid-laugh, her hand hovering over a tray of mini quiches. I watched her pupils contract, her breath catch. She stammered, fake chuckling. "Oh no, that's not... Someone must have made a mistake." More neighbors chimed in, curious smiles sharpening into suspicion. Questions about the announcement buzzed from corner to corner. Whispers floated, ugly and gleeful. I caught Mrs. Henson glancing meaningfully at Lisa's left hand, noticing for the first time that she hadn't worn her wedding ring in weeks. Lisa's carefully curated world tilted. Her charm cracked. She tried to laugh it off, but her voice went shrill, the kind of brittle edge that makes people lean back, wary. Then, like blood in the water, the real sharks came sniffing. "We thought Nathan was your realtor," one woman asked too loudly. Another muttered, "Didn't see Michael at last month's event either." Lisa snapped. The facade fell off her like a cheap Halloween costume. Her wine glass slammed onto the counter, spilling across the marble like a slow, bleeding wound. "He's hacking my life!" she shrieked, voice slicing through the gathering like a whip. "He's sabotaging me!" Dead silence. Forks frozen halfway to mouths. Eyes darting between Lisa, flushed and trembling, and me, standing calm and still by the patio door, Ava clinging to my leg. Ava's small voice broke the moment open even wider. She tugged on my jeans wide-eyed and asked, "Why's Mommy so angry, Daddy?" Lisa's face contorted. Rage, humiliation, something darker. But she said nothing. She couldn't. Every word she spoke tightened the trap around her. I knelt to pick Ava up, feeling her tiny arms wrap around my neck, her heart thumping against mine. Over her shoulder, I caught Lisa's eyes. She knew. She knew she was losing control, and it was killing her faster than any scream could. Later that night, after the last of the guests had fled under the excuse of early mornings and babysitters waiting, I prepared the next cut, a forged mortgage default notice, printed on paper stained just right, slipped carefully into the neighborhood association's confidential inbox. It didn't have to be real. It just had to look real enough to seed doubt. Rumors bloomed overnight. By Monday morning, Karen from two houses down was already whispering to her book club that Lisa might be over her head in debt and desperate to sell. By noon, Lisa's phone was buzzing nonstop. Neighbor after neighbor reaching out, offering help, wrapped in thinly veiled nosiness. Meanwhile, I spent the afternoon in the backyard, tossing a baseball back and forth with Ava under the lazy spring sun, laughing as she missed and chased it down the grass. The world around us whispered and churned, a storm gathering above Lisa's perfect little castle. And this was only the beginning. The rumors had only just begun to rot Lisa's castle when the next betrayal surfaced, uglier than anything I could have imagined. It came on a rainy Wednesday, tucked inside a bland school email about field trip logistics. At the bottom, almost as an afterthought, a teacher added, "Concerned about Ava's attendance. She's missed several special events lately. Is everything okay?" I sat in the garage, the rain hammering the roof like 1,000 tiny fists, reading that line over and over until the words blurred. Avenue, 8 years old, bright as the damn sun, had been looking forward to every museum visit, every science center tour, every silly picnic in the park. The things that made school feel like magic instead of just homework and hallways. And Lisa had been forging permission slips, lying about family emergencies, just so she could sneak off and roll around with Nathan in some cheap motel bed. My teeth ground together so hard my jaw ached. She wasn't just betraying me. She was stealing pieces of Ava's childhood to fund her affair. I could have confronted her, screamed, smashed something. But by now, rage had evolved into something colder, sharper. This war wasn't about fury anymore. It was about dismantling her, piece by piece, until she stood in front of everyone she tried so hard to impress, naked and rotten underneath the skin. The opportunity came faster than expected. The school sent out a call for parent volunteers for Reading Day, a bright little event where moms and dads showed up with cookies and awkward enthusiasm. I signed up immediately, not because I wanted to sit in tiny chairs and read Green Eggs and Ham, but because the parent group chat had just gone live, and Lisa was in it. The morning of Reading Day, I screenshotted Lisa's latest string of disgusting texts to Nathan. The ones about skipping another field trip, about laughing off Ava's disappointment because kids forget this stuff anyway. Then, disguised as an accident, I attached the screenshot to a batch of volunteer snacks photos and sent them to the whole group chat. The silence that followed was volcanic. At the school, I watched the ripple effect move like a shockwave through the crowd of parents. Some gasping softly, others exchanging looks sharp enough to cut glass. Nathan's cousin, it turned out, was a second-grade mom too, standing by the juice boxes with her mouth hanging open. Lisa hadn't arrived yet. She strolled in late, hair glossy, wearing a bright red dress like she was stepping onto a movie set. She smiled, wide, fake, until the air hit her. The weight of the stares, the turned backs, the stiff smiles too tight to be real. She froze, confused, defensive. Then her phone buzzed, no doubt someone privately forwarding her the accidentally leaked messages. And I watched her face collapse, piece by piece like a building crumbling in slow motion. She made it through 15 minutes before she bolted, muttering something about feeling ill, leaving Ava to sit alone at the coloring station with a broken crayon and a confused little frown. I crouched beside Ava, smoothing her hair back gently. "Want me to stay and help you pick colors?" I asked, voice steady even as my heart twisted. She nodded, small and serious, and slid a coloring book toward me. Afterward, while Lisa fumed somewhere behind her locked car door, I made a quiet call to the school counselor, tipping them off about Ava's sudden absences and her mother's strange, neglectful patterns. I didn't have to say much. The counselor had already seen enough. It wouldn't take long before questions got asked Lisa wasn't ready to answer. By the time Ava and I walked out into the spring sunshine, hand in hand, I knew the damage was already spiderwebbing under Lisa's feet. Her lies weren't just falling apart. They were detonating one after another, leaving her no time to patch the cracks before the next explosion hit. And I wasn't slowing down. Not now. Not when Ava's broken crayons still felt sharp enough to bleed through my hands. By the time spring sank its claws into Tulsa and the sidewalk steamed after every rain, Lisa's mask had cracked so badly even Ava noticed. She'd watch her mother move around the house, frantic and bitter, a porcelain doll rattling on the edge of a shelf. The neighbors had grown colder. School sent home more questions than permission slips. And Lisa, she dug in deeper, snapping at shadows, thinking she could still claw her way out. That's when I decided to make her house, the thing she prized more than anything, turn against her. Lisa's book club met once a month, a gathering of women who smelled like expensive soap and carried grudges under their designer totes. It was her safe space, her last shrine of worship, and it was the perfect place for the next blow. I spent the week before preparing the stage. Our home's smart lights, the ones she installed to impress the neighborhood tours, were my weapons. I programmed them to flicker at precise intervals, just subtle enough at first to seem like a glitch. I rigged the Alexa system too, feeding it one of Lisa's nastiest blog posts, the one where she mocked Ava's piano dreams, calling her whiny and hopelessly average. It would play when I told it to, masked behind a fake update. The night of the gathering, I stayed upstairs, pretending to fix a drawer in the hallway. I heard the front door open, the clink of wine glasses, the syrupy greetings. Lisa's laugh rang out, brittle, desperate. She was performing even harder now, selling the lie like her life depended on it. And then the lights began to stutter. At first, there were awkward chuckles. Someone asked if there was a storm coming. Lisa brushed it off with a tight smile. But when the lights pulsed a second time, sharper, and the walls seemed to twitch, the room tensed. Whispers floated. Glasses clinked nervously. That's when Alexa's voice, smooth, empty, cold, filled the room. Maybe Ava should just quit piano already. No one likes a whiny little failure. The room went dead silent. You could feel the blood drain out of the air. I imagined every mother there, every proud, sharp-eyed woman, turning to look at Lisa with new, colder eyes. Lisa lunged for the device, hissing under her breath, but it wasn't over. Alexa repeated it, louder this time, as if peeling her skin off in front of everyone she still desperately needed to impress. In the chaos, Lisa shoved one of her friends, knocking a glass of Pinot across the white carpet. Gasps rose around her like a funeral choir. From upstairs, I heard Ava's small feet on the stairs, the rapid patter of panic. She found me crouched by the hallway wall, blinking fast, tears already pooling. "Daddy, does Mommy hate my piano?" My hands shook for the first time in weeks, not with rage, with heartbreak. I scooped her into my arms, pressing my forehead against hers, breathing slow so she wouldn't feel how close I was to shattering. "No, sweetheart," I whispered. "Mommy's just confused. But you're incredible." Downstairs, Lisa's world was coming apart in shrill, drunken shards. I heard Karen, her own mother, snap something vicious and final before the front door slammed so hard the windows rattled. Later, when the house had emptied out and only the wreckage of Lisa's failure clung to the walls, I sent Karen a text. Just a screenshot of the cruel blog post about Ava. Nothing else. Her reply came back fast. "You're no daughter of mine." I sat in the kitchen afterward, lights dimmed low, while Ava plunked away gently on her new keyboard upstairs, her melody crooked and bright. Her tiny, determined notes floated down through the air vents, soft but unstoppable. Lisa's kingdom wasn't crumbling anymore. It was burning from the inside out, and she didn't even know where the fire had started. Lisa didn't know it yet, but she was running out of places to hide. Every room she walked into was colder. Every neighbor smiled a little too tightly. Even Ava's teachers treated her with polite, wary distance now. But Lisa? She kept sprinting toward a cliff, too stubborn or too stupid to see the edge. I decided it was time to trip her. Publicly. The gym had always been Lisa's last refuge. It wasn't about health. It was about appearances. About those tight Instagram stories where she pretended to be grinding while really posing next to treadmills she barely touched. Her fitness tracker was her prized possession, flashing stats like badges of honor to anyone who would look. It only took a few nights of quiet coding and an old security flaw in the tracker's firmware to slip in and tweak her records. The next morning, Lisa strutted into her favorite coffee shop after a hard run, all yoga pants and fake sweat. I was parked across the street, watching from behind the tinted glass. She met up with two of her gym friends, smiling wide, expecting admiration. Instead, one of them pulled up her public fitness feed on her phone and burst out laughing. "Lisa, it says you ran 100 miles today." Their laughter exploded, sharp and ugly. Someone else chimed in. "What did you do? Jog to Kansas and back." Another pointed out her calorie burn, enough to power a small village for a week. Lisa's smile cracked. She tried to play it off, but the mocking was relentless, rippling through the cafe like wildfire. She ended up snapping, accusing the app, the tracker, the coffee, the gods. Anything but herself. I watched her storm out, shoulders rigid, cheeks burning crimson. Ava sat beside me in the back seat, sipping a cocoa I bought her from a different shop down the street. She glanced up at me, brow furrowed. "Why's Mommy yelling again?" I just shook my head and handed her a napkin. Some people get mad when things don't go their way. That afternoon, while Lisa sulked at home, I tipped the gym manager, anonymously of course, about multiple fake memberships linked to suspicious purchases. Some of those purchases had been made with money meant for Ava's piano lessons. The gym didn't wait long. Lisa's account was frozen by the end of the day. Her group chats went eerily silent. I wasn't done. That evening, I sent a fake identity theft alert to her phone, a perfectly crafted warning from a banking security team, warning her that suspicious charges were being investigated. I even used the same tone and phrasing her real bank used, enough to light a fire in her chest without revealing who was holding the match. By midnight, Lisa was pacing the living room, snapping at customer service agents on speakerphone, clutching her useless fitness watch like it could still protect her. Ava sat at the kitchen counter coloring, swinging her little legs back and forth, immune to the chaos. I stood in the doorway, arms folded, watching it unfold. Lisa's whole life, the curated fitness, the public face, the carefully arranged admiration, was rotting out from under her, and every frantic move she made only dragged her deeper into the quicksand. But still, no final blow. Not yet. You can't ruin a house by kicking in the door. You let the termites eat it from the inside out until it falls under its own weight. Lisa's fall was almost ready, and I was going to make sure everyone she cared about was there to see it. Sunday supper at the Lawson house was supposed to be sacred. Lisa's parents clung to traditions like shields, pretending the world hadn't moved on without them. Roast beef, fine china, cheap red wine pretending to be expensive. Lisa made a show of dressing Ava up, curling her hair, barking orders like a general prepping for battle. But she didn't see me anymore. She looked right through me, eyes empty, like I was a ghost haunting her perfect world. Good. Because tonight, the ghost was bringing the storm. I set it up carefully, a small Bluetooth speaker tucked into my jacket pocket. Files loaded, no theatrics, no shouting, just facts, cold and brutal, laid bare in front of the people she still desperately needed to believe her. Dinner started stiff, fake smiles plastered over tighter jaws. Karen, her mother, barely touched her plate. Her father made awkward jokes that fell like stones in a well. Ava sat beside me, quiet but smiling, drawing musical notes on a napkin. I waited until dessert, when the walls were thinnest, when the wine had numbed their edges just enough. I pulled out my phone. One tap. Lisa's blog post started to play, her own voice spilling into the room like acid. Counting the days until I can dump the war-obsessed loser. Nathan makes me feel alive. Selling the house is just the start. Ava will adapt. Kids forget. Forks clattered onto plates. Karen's hand froze halfway to her mouth. Lisa's eyes went wide, her mouth open, soundless. The room twisted, heavy and electric. Karen stood slowly, her chair scraping loud against the hardwood. "You're dead to us," she said, voice shaking, not with sadness, but with rage. "Get out!" Lisa crumpled, Right there at the dinner table she always bragged about. Tears streaked down her makeup, her sobs thick and ugly. But no one moved to help her. Not Karen, not her father, not even the cousins she once paraded like trophies. The front door burst open a few minutes later, as if summoned by karma itself. Police, tipped off weeks ago by the evidence I had been gathering about the fraudulent house sale, the forged signatures, the wire fraud. Officers moved in quietly, almost gently, reading rights, slapping cuffs on wrists manicured for Instagram. Lisa's cries turned raw, feral, filling the suburban street as neighbors peeked through blinds and filmed with their phones. I stepped onto the porch, Ava's hand clutching mine so tight her knuckles turned white. She didn't cry. She didn't ask questions. She just watched the squad car pull away with her mother in the back seat, red and blue lights flashing against the neat little houses lined up like graves. She held up the crumpled napkin she'd been drawing on, a simple treble clef, crooked but hopeful. "I just need Daddy," she whispered, voice so small it nearly broke me in half. I knelt down eye to eye, the sirens fading into the distance. "You've got me," I said steady. "And your music. We're going to build something better, I promise." The neighbors watched from their driveways, some pretending to rake leaves, some just standing there, bare-faced and staring. No more illusions left to cling to. That night, Ava sat at her new keyboard, fingers stumbling over the keys, laughter bubbling up as she pieced together broken melodies into something clumsy but alive. Her joy lit up the room brighter than any chandelier Lisa ever bragged about. I leaned against the doorway, watching her, the house around us finally silent, not empty, not haunted, free. That's all for now, folks. Thank you for being with me today and listened. And if you liked my story, please subscribe, hit the like button, and comment below what you think about all this, and what would you do if you were me. Also, don't forget to check my other stories in description below.